This is a message from Detroit.
This is Adult.
And you are listening to Bass Agenda. Take your mind to another level. So good.
That's so multi-layered. I think both Nicola and I are super inspired by vocals that are really just one phrase, but they're so catchy and powerful.
Yeah, that fragment.
Yeah, just that fragment that's like looping, and that even goes to Discipline. I mean, that's not a long lyric sheet on Discipline either, and same, we have some songs like People You Can Confuse, and it's like that idea where that's an inspiration right there. Secondly, what can you say? I mean, Drexciya, it says it all. And early on, we became friends with Gerald, and he would come to our studio to do his final mix downs. And one day he brought someone over, and the guy wasn't particularly friendly, and I said, you're in my house, and I expect you to say hello at least and be polite. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, or something. And I said, what's your name? And he was like, James. And I went, wait, are you telling me Drexciya's in my studio right now? And they were like, yeah, like no big deal. But he was just shy and quiet and was just letting Gerald do his work. And obviously that I'm not telling that as like a star-struck moment, which I was. I'm telling it that in Detroit, there's a real, going back to that sense of community where just having these people just in your house and everything. And then we got into really great conversations and had a really a nice time. It's about that, what is it? It's that lack of ego, that camaraderie, that's a big, it meant a lot. Like,
yeah, but aside from that, Drexciya is just punk as can be, and it's like here is complete, total electronics, and it's so tough.
As someone that writes music, I mean, I tend to find I shift between, like, for a while I'm really obsessed with beats. Like right now we have a 808 that's been MIDI'd, and since the beginning of Adult, we've really almost, except for the first couple 12 inches, we've always used the MIDI. On the new stuff we're working on now, like it's not out yet or anything, just right now, I decided I got totally obsessed with relearning how to use it and to do all the fills live and all that. So when something like that happens, and then I go back and listen to Drexciya, I'm completely inspired by how they use the 808. And that's something that I wasn't listening to with them, 4 years ago. I may have been more obsessed with bass lines, or, you know what I mean? Like, so always going back and something else.
You're rediscovering another
layer.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when it's really rich and complicated music.
Which forms part of the Ocean After Nature exhibition, which is on in the Hugh Lane Gallery, and further explores and reveals the consequences of human actions on the planet, specifically on our oceans. The exhibition is curated by Alaina Claire Feldman, and Zoe Cummins went to speak to her.
1.788.4 kilobaud.
So we also have in this exhibition a vitrine and sonic seascape by the Detroit techno group Drexciya.
Thank you.
The mythology in all of their work draws attention to slaves, African slaves that were thrown overboard during the slave trade.
Lardosian Cruiser 8-203X. Please use extra caution as you pass the Aqua construction site on the side of the Aquabahn. I repeat, proceed with caution.
Who bear children underneath the ocean floor, and their children were born with webbed feet underwater, and they're slowly rising up to the surface and to creep on land to kind of take over and almost seek revenge on the slave trade in the United States. So some of their songs are called Living on the Edge, Hydrocube, Bubble Metropolis, Black Sea. And, a lot of Afrofuturism has been thought of as seeking the heavens as an answer for our contemporary culture. But instead, what Drexciya does is they look to the sea. So it's a kind of also another play and inversion of thinking of Afrofuturism that looks, on our planet and to reimagine a future. And then what was really important was to have sound and a techno band, because essentially what techno music does is it brings people together on the dance floor and can kind of raise consciousness about this kind of trauma in history, but it's something that can happen and be, sought out and thought about through music and through bodies in space.
This is American Life. I'm Ira Glass. Each week on our program, of course, we choose a theme, bring you different kinds of stories on that theme. Today's show, We Are in the Future, a show inspired by Afrofuturism, which my colleague Neil Drumming has become interested in as a lens to view the future, the past, and the present. Hey there, Neil.
Hello again. So in case you're wondering, the title of this week's show comes from an album by Sun Ra.
I am not wondering that because I've said it in our own story meetings. But continue and explain to the people.
Sorry. I didn't mean to black-splain you, Ira. So anyway, the title for this week's show comes from an album by Sun Ra, We Are in the Future.
Which brings us to Act 3.
Act 3, The Black Sea.
So this one I know about. There's this hip-hop group called Clipping. It's Bill Hutsid, Jonathan Snipes, and David Diggs, who listeners might know. David Diggs is on the soundtrack to Hamilton. He plays Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson. And we commissioned Clipping to write a sci-fi story for us, a song. And what they made was a tribute to a Detroit band from the 90s called Drexciya. And Drexciya had created this whole mythology in their band. And the mythology was based on the idea that pregnant African women on slave ships were sometimes thrown overboard. And Drexciya imagined that the babies survived and learned to live and thrive underwater, and that the babies founded a black Atlantis under the sea. And so in this song that Clipping wrote for us, the civilization under sea was living peacefully for centuries, unaware that humans were above on land, until those of us who live on the surface, we intruded on their underwater civilization by firing seismic air cannons into their world, looking for oil. And then they kind of slowly, over the course of the song, you hear they slowly rise to the surface, psyching up for war. So you'll hear the air cannons, you'll hear them come to the surface. Anyway, you'll hear it all. Here's the song.